Council America region, founded it, was the chairperson for many years, and then came back and served the second term as the chairperson. And just all around super stay with us. So, without further ado, Kuldeep will track with the Anandpur Sahib resolution. Vai
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ Just to get your attention a little bit more, we learned a lot since we came here, and this morning's two seminars were very effective. The first one, reflections from Dr. Singh word, and then from Dr. Singh talked about gymnastics technology. Sorry. I used to judge that my voice is going far behind, but somehow I started speaking slowly or softly, so that nobody can hear. So if you don't hear at the back, just raise your hand and start speaking. Anandpur Sahib resolution, a great piece of document that was produced by the Sikhs. Kuldeep Singh has the greatest contribution in it, and it's when you will see when I will narrate what it is all about, you will be amazed that how great that is. But we learned that from another resolution that was passed in 1940 by Muslim League, the Muslim organization of the Muslims throughout India at that time. They had the resolution which is popularly known as 1940 Lahore resolution, which is very similar. So I will just compare the two very briefly. I will concentrate mostly on the Anandpur Sahib resolution. This is little background. All India National Congress met in Lahore in 1929 and fixed complete independence as its political goal. So it is as early as 1929. One day prior to the meeting of the National Congress, the Sikhs had taken out a 500,000 strong procession with veteran Baba Kuldeep Singh, who was the leader of the Sikhs at that time, leading on an elephant back. It was the most impressive spectacle of human congregation that put the Congress show to shame and shame. And that's when the Congress started talking to the Sikhs that why don't we merge our destiny together? Why don't we stay together? All the British told that there are three heirs of the sovereignty of India: Hindus, Muslims and the Sikhs. But the Sikhs decided that they should merge their destiny with the Hindus. So it was on that occasion that Mahatma Gandhi, Motilal Nehru, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, these three great men of that time, went to meet Baba Kuldeep Singh, the leader of the Sikhs, at his place and gave the Sikhs a solemn assurance that after India achieves political freedom, no constitution shall be framed by the majority community unless it is freely acceptable to the Sikhs. This is the statement that was made at that time, and it was repeated so many times after that. But there was nothing in writing, nothing said in black and white that this is going to happen after independence. But promises are made again and again. Let's talk about the Anandpur Sahib resolution. This is the background I have traced in right after 1947. You must have all heard that in 1947, prior to 1947, so many promises were made, but right after 47, when the Sikhs started migrating towards India, a circular was sent to all the deputy commissioners of the country that the Sikhs who are coming from the west part of the Punjab, they are criminals and they should be kept in a restricted area up to Ambala. They shouldn't cross Ambala because they commit crime for anything. And that's what we were branded right after the partition. And in 1949, when the election was held, there was a state in Punjab. It consisted of the princely state, which was considered Pepsu. Pepsu means Punjab and East Punjab States Union. So that was a separate state from Punjab. At that time, the first time the election, when the election was held, the Sikh party, Akali Dal, won that seat, and Gyan Singh Radhagola became the first Sikh chief minister in 1949. But government, it seems, it didn't like it. In 1950, when the constitution was framed, constitution was made, then the merger happened of Punjab and Punjab, East Punjab States Union. Punjab and Pepsu got merged and became the Greater Punjab. That is to tell the Sikhs that we do not like the Sikh ministry. We want the broader Punjab so that a non-Sikh can become the chief minister. And that's what exactly happened right after 1950. And 1951, first election was held under the new constitution. 1955, Sikhs decided to have agitation on Punjabi Suba. That is just to create a Punjabi-speaking state, because the India was divided on the basis of linguistic provinces. That's what India decided under Patel, who was the Home Minister of India. Home Minister is like the Secretary of State of India. And they decided that India should be divided on the basis of linguistics. But Punjab was not divided. That's why the Sikhs started agitation in 1955. And in that agitation, 20,000 Sikhs were arrested and were sent to jail. The Morcha was repeated in 1960 when 40,000 Sikhs got arrested. I had the privilege of participating in the Morcha of 1960. It was 12th June 1960, and they arrested me from my house and took me to jail that is called the Hard Jail. And without any charges, of course they have charges, but those are baseless charges, that a person is a criminal. The person was there in the agitation and was trying to kill people. That was the charge leveled against me, and I went to the Kotwali, which is next to the Seasland Gurdwara Sahib, where I was handcuffed and sent to the Hard Jail. So I remember that morcha where 40,000 Sikhs got arrested. 1966, Indira Gandhi created Punjabi Suba. But this was a much reduced Punjabi Suba. So many Punjabi speaking areas were left out. They were not included in the Punjabi speaking state. And also the capital that was built for Punjab, that was not given to Punjab. It was considered the capital of both the states that were created out of Punjab. One was Punjab, the other was Haryana. 1971, Akalis won only one seat out of 13 in the parliament. There are 13 seats even now, and out of that, Akalis did not win more than one seat. And in the Legislative Assembly, which consists of 117 seats, it's just like a Congress in America. So 117 seats, the Akalis got only 24, so they didn't form the ministry at that time. That's the little background. So after losing the seats in the parliament, after losing the legislative assembly seats in the state, they decided that we should introspect ourselves. So a 12-member subcommittee was formed to assess the situation. And these are just the names. You don't have to remember the names, but I just wanted to quote the names so that you know that there is an actual 12-member committee. So Jit Singh Barnala, Jeevan Singh Umaranandu, Bhagat Singh, Gyan Singh Radewala, Prem Singh Lalpura, Bhag Singh of Sikh Review, Gurcharan Singh Tora, Gurmeet Singh, Balwant Singh, Amar Singh Ambalvi, Jaswinder Singh Brar, and Gurmat Singh Major General. So these people were in that committee. I abbreviated, that's why I elaborated on that. So in 1973, October 16 and 17, this committee came up with a resolution for Anandpur Sahib. So it's the committee of 12 people, and they have first meeting in Amritsar and 10 successive meetings in Chandigarh. Sardar Kuldeep Singh, although he was not a member of the committee, but he was the main person behind it. And he always told one thing to the Panth, that do not ask anything on the basis of language. Ask something for the Panth. Because Panth has done so much for the country. It is the Khalsa Panth who has done so much to create an independent India. So why don't you ask? It is your right. It is your fundamental right to do that. And these are some of the words that he has actually communicated directly to me also. He has written in the books. But when he came to visit us in 1972 in Detroit, Michigan, at that time he told these words, exactly which I am quoting. So Sardar Kuldeep Singh thoughts are mainly in the draft, adopted unanimously by the working committee of Akali at Anandpur Sahib on October 16 and 17. So it was adopted at the Anandpur Sahib, and that's why it's called Anandpur Sahib resolution. And it was endorsed again at the 18th Indian All India Akali Conference at Ludhiana on October 28, 1978, under the presidency of Jathedar Kuldeep Singh Talwandi, and that was the second time it was endorsed. That's why, people say there are about 3 drafts of Anandpur Sahib resolution that are available. But I think in the encyclopedia, Sardar Gurmat Singh has clarified the situation, that the first one, Anandpur Sahib resolution, as I have circulated to you, it is drafted at Anandpur Sahib. Then at the 1978, there were 12 resolutions. Those were added to the first draft, and that was still called Anandpur Sahib resolution. So that's what that Anandpur Sahib resolution, it states, whereas Sikhs of India are a historically recognized political nation ever since 1699, this status of the Sikh nation is internationally recognized and accepted by major powers of the world. Sardar Kuldeep Singh emphasized that we were very well known from 1799 to 1850, when Maharaja Ranjit Singh ruled. And at that time, the worldwide recognition of the Sikhs were there. And during the British time, Sikhs were very popular. And the British recognized them as behavior, as I mentioned to you. So this was put in the resolution that they are accepted by the major powers, and majority in India is liquidating the Sikhs and their political identity. That's another reason. Therefore, India should carve out an autonomous region in which Sikh interests are protected. So in order to protect the Sikh interests, India should create or carve out and create an autonomous state. So basic postulates of the Akali Dal that they mentioned, and it's all in the resolution in detail. I have just given you points so that you know what it contains. Human coexistence, human welfare, ultimate unity of all human beings with the Vaheguru. They are based on 3 Sikh principles given below. That's also written in the resolution. Naam Japo, meditation on God's name. Kirat Karo, honest labor. Vant Chapo, sharing the fruits of this labor. Then purposes are narrated there. To propagate ethical values and code of conduct, preserve the distinct and sovereign identity of the Panth, eradication of poverty and starvation through increased production, equitable distribution of wealth, and establishment of a just social order, and removing discrimination on the basis of caste, creed, or any other ground in keeping with the Sikh principle. Then the last one, removal of disease and ill health in an effort to prepare the Sikh nation for the national defense. Then the political goal, and this is the political goal that I am comparing with the Lahore resolution. Aim of the Khalsa is Khalsa Ji Ke Bol Pale, and that's also in our Ardas that we recite every day, Khalsa Ji Ke Bol Pale. That means Khalsa becomes the talk of the town, preeminence of the Khalsa. In order to achieve this objective, Akali Dal will strive to have all the Punjabi-speaking areas that were kept out of Punjab to be merged with Punjab. That's the first thing they should do, because the Punjab that was created was half-heartedly created. A lot of areas that really belong to Punjab, they were left out. Centrist interference should be restricted to defense, foreign relations, currency, and communication. These areas, they said, should be left out. The rest of the Punjab should be ruled by the people of Punjab. Sikhs and other minorities living outside Punjab should be protected against any kind of discrimination. That means the Punjabis, particularly the Sikhs, if they live outside Punjab, they should be protected. Their rights should be protected. They should be discriminated against. So I will come to the Lahore resolution at the end, and I will bring you back to this one again. Federal system of the government. Akali Dal will support a federal system with equal representation at the center for all the states. Akali Dal denounces foreign policy of India. It strongly advocates a policy of peace with all neighboring countries, particularly those that have Sikh population and Sikh shrines. So that's very important to protect our interests in the neighboring countries. Akali Dal will not tolerate any discrimination to any Sikh employees of the center or state government. Akali Dal shall ensure that Kirpan is accepted as an integral part of the uniform of the Sikhs in the army. Then protection of civil rights. Akali Dal shall help rehabilitate ex-servicemen of the defense forces in the civil life. All citizens who have not been convicted for any criminal offense should have the right to bear small arms like revolvers, guns, pistols, rifles, etc. Akali Dal seeks a ban on the sale of liquor, including other intoxicants, and a ban on the consumption of intoxicants and smoking in public places. So these are some of the features that were in the 1973 resolution, which is a true Anandpur Sahib resolution. Now these 12 resolutions were added afterwards in 1978. Those were moved by Sardar Gurmat Singh Tora and endorsed by Sardar Prakash Singh Babu. And that's the first resolution. I have narrated the first couple of resolutions that needed elaboration. Rest of the resolutions I have just given you and cited you because they were very brief and to the point. Resolution number 1, India is a federal and republican geographical entity of different languages, religions and cultures. To safeguard the fundamental rights of religious and bilinguistic minorities, Indian infrastructure should be given a federal shape by redefining center and state relations. Federal shape, federal type of system, just like the system that America is having. That type of system was advised. Chandigarh, that was built as the capital for Punjab, should be handed over to Punjab. Left out Punjabi areas identified by experts should be merged with Punjab. As you can see, these resolutions are simply elaboration of the main Anandpur Sahib resolution, which is just a general writing of the resolution. These are specific things that need to be done under those categories. Keeping in mind the special aptitude and martial qualities of the Sikhs, the present ratio of Sikhs, strength and army should be maintained. That was another area in which Sikhs needed to address the Indian government because they were trying to reduce the strength of the Sikhs in the Indian army. Because in the Indian army during the British time, our strength was phenomenal, very great. And that's why the British were so proud of the Sikhs, because they excel in every field that they have given the responsibility of. Excesses committed on the settlers in the Tarai region of UP, where Sikhs have settled, should be vacated by making changes in the sealing law. Can I go through the second resolution? Yeah, I will. The third resolution, eradicate unemployment in the next 10 years, raise the EGR, which is economic growth rate, to 7% per annum and per capita income to $3,000 rupees. I didn't have the symbol for rupees, so I put a dollar. To make Punjab a leading state in the next 10 years. Redraft the taxation structure to shift the taxation burden from poor to rich. Our Republican government doesn't like that. Make an international airport in Amritsar, bring prices of agricultural produces and industrial raw materials to make Punjab economically strong. Then resolutions 4 to 10 have gone out in one line. Neighboring states should have Punjabi as its second language. See, this was natural. It is so sad to see the neighboring Haryana to have, I think they have Tamil as the second language. And why not have a second language of the state that is your neighbor state? So this was advised during this resolution. Claims of the refugees who had migrated to Jammu and Kashmir should be settled immediately. Injustices and discrimination to minorities and Sikhs in other states are condemned. Abolish excise duty on tractors for the benefit of the farmers of Punjab. Amend the Minimum Wage Act. Permit us to install broadcasting station at Golden Temple, Amritsar for relaying Gurbani Kirtan for Diaspora Sikhs, which has started. I do not know how well it is going, but that's going. Then resolution 10 to 12, enable women to get rights of inheritance in the properties of her father-in-law instead of her father. This was the difficulty with the farmers, and that's why this resolution came into being. The land should be exempted from wealth and estate taxes. Then create a special ministry to handle discrimination cases of scheduled and non-scheduled classes. Then the 12th one is vacate the injustice done in Punjab in the distribution of Ravi gas waters. Also immediately establish 6 sugar mills and 4 textile mills in Punjab so that the state may be able to implement its agro-industrial policy. So these are the 12 resolutions. And now I bring you back to the Lahore resolution of 1940. This is just a simple summary of that, and then I'll compare it. You have a question?
I was gonna ask for the context, right, on the Anandpur resolution. And so I've always wondered about for instance, the one on economics, like we should eradicate unemployment and these things. Like, who are they saying these things to? Are they holding themselves accountable to try and do these things with the center as a state? Like, they're making these declarations, but what's the plan to do those things? With whom are they going to do those things?
Well, that's it. Sending the resolution to the Indian government.
Could you repeat the question?
I was told that who are they addressing all these resolutions?
And how did they plan to do something with these resolutions, right?
How did they plan to implement those?
Right.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking, that the resolution is passed and sent to the Indian government that this is what the Sikhs want and these are our demands. But when you add the resolutions to them, in my opinion, you are diluting the effect of the major thing that you want to achieve. Our major achievement would have been to have a autonomous Punjab that should be ruled by the people of Punjab, except the communication, defense, and foreign affairs and currency, leaving those things for the center to manage. That was our main point. So what happens is, when in 1978 they brought in all those resolutions with it, the government agreed to certain resolutions, just like having a broadcasting station at Golden Temple, for example, or there was something else that they have admitted. Out of those 12, they have fulfilled some minor demands, and they say, look here, you had about 14 demands, we have fulfilled about 8. So what are you grumbling about? So that's why I'm saying that we are diluting the effect by adding our demand, the little demands unnecessary. Just keep the demand for a autonomous state, which Sardar Kuldeep Singh used to call it Sikh homeland within India. Let us ask for Sikh homeland within India. That's all our demand is. And that way they can go anywhere. This is what I am saying. So the demand resolution, they are given to the government and they are for the benefit of the people to understand what the Sikhs are asking. Very similar resolution here. India didn't become independent at that time, and so Muhammad Ali Jinnah addressed this conference in 1940, and he says, northwestern and eastern regions of India, where Muslims are in majority, should be grouped to constitute independent states, in which the constituent unit shall be autonomous. Number 2, adequate, effective, mandatory safeguards should be specifically provided in the Constitution to minorities in these units and in the regions for the protection of their religious, cultural, economic, political, administrative, and other rights and interests in consultation with them. These are two, and there are two more. In other parts of India where the Muslims are in minority, adequate, effective, and mandatory safeguards shall be specifically provided in the Constitution for them and other minorities for the protection of their religious, cultural, economic, political, administrative, and other rights and interests in consulting with them. Very similar, but here it changed from minorities to Muslims. Then all other powers such as defense. So look at the Anandpur resolution as this. Such as defense, external affairs, communication, customs, and such other matters as may be necessary will be the responsibility of the federal government of India. So this resolution, when it was passed in 1940, was sent to the British government and also sent to the Congress. At that time, Congress committee branded it as a separatist movement. Just like when Sikhs started the movement for Punjabi speaking state, it was also branded by the Indian government or by the Congress committee as a separatist movement. They called it a Khalistani movement or Sikh Raj movement. Same thing with the Anandpur resolution that was branded as a Khalistan resolution. So the government says it is a separatist movement and we cannot fulfill that demand. So it is a common thing with the Congress to brand it as a separatist movement. Although look at the Lahore resolution, there is no mention of Pakistan. And they have convinced even the Pakistanis. Today's Pakistani, if you ask, they will say, we had a Pakistan resolution in 1940. It was thrown down the throat of a Muslim as well. That they started thinking that, look here, this is a separatist slogan. So this is what we have to be very careful, that Anandpur resolution is for the betterment of India. India does not want Punjab to be autonomous state. The Sikhs do not want Punjab to be autonomous state, but the whole of India to be consisting of a union of states rather than a centralized power in India. That's what the greatness of this resolution is. That we want an American type of system, a federal system, so that just to decentralize the center and let all states rule themselves and let only some of the powers like defense, external affairs, communication should be handled by the center only. And that's what it is for all of them. And Sikhs were able to communicate and convince the DMK party of the South, that the entire South should also be very autonomous in their own right, and let there be decentralization of power and a federal system should prevail. So these are some of the things. I still have 10 minutes, and during those 10 minutes you can ask any questions you may have. Yes.
Kuldeep, I've heard that the 1978 draft with the additional resolutions, the 1978 version that was written in English, and that when they interpreted the concept of a sovereign nation or being autonomous, that at that time the drafters actually interpreted it as meaning a separate country. Some authors have written that. Can you comment on that? But that the original Punjabi version was not, that wasn't the intent of the wording used in it.
I'm really sorry. I should have brought that Punjabi version. I had the Punjabi version, but I never read it that way. That autonomous means separation from India, because they never drafted any resolution, even up to the last minute. Gurmat Singh used to say that, I think the most we can ask for is Sikh homeland within India, and he used to emphasize within India. I asked him a question in 1972 that why not a completely independent sovereign country, Pakistan? What's wrong with that? He said, time has gone past. If you are in America, you have to buy things in dollars, not in rupees. That's the stance he gave me in a very sarcastic way, that you should think about buying things in the currency that is prevailing. So today is not the time when India became so strong, and that's what he was saying. I'm not saying it's my opinion. My opinion is completely different, but that's what his opinion was at the time, and he's the main scribe of the resolution.
Uncle, you've given a time scale of how a resolution started before independence. What was the role of Master Tara Singh? Because he was a very prominent figure during the independence. Was he involved in all of these things or no?
Well, Master Singh was very much involved till the last minute. Anandpur resolution, he was very much in it. And till the last minute, when Master Singh was the president of Akali Dal and Gurmat Singh was the vice president, they would work together. So Master Singh's role has always been nice, but he was not a very capable, strong leader who can give a good leadership to the Khalsa Panth. He was a very sincere, devoted person. That's what I hope. Brandon, think about it.
Uncle G, can you just also elaborate a little bit on the cultural context of the decision in the first place for India to subdivide into regions and states that were language-based, and why the cultural context was such that even I think for people who grew up here, it's very difficult to understand why setting up a country, one would think to separate it out into states of language and not have those nationalistic nationwide languages, nationwide currency, nationwide everything all be one nationwide, and what was the impetus to divide all those into Gujarat and Kerala and all have like different languages in the first place?
On the basis of languages or on the basis of religion?
Well, they did both, right? Like it was like the states were set up based on languages. So why even, I think for us it's difficult to imagine why that was a smart idea in the first place when you're trying to set up a country. But I would imagine it is because of the cultural context of who and where everyone had their allegiances to.
Very good question. India was multilingual, that everybody knows. But India was a lot of princely states. That's the bad part. So it was very important to divide the states somehow. Integration of state, this is one book written by P.K. Menon, very nicely written, and how India got divided into various states. He wrote 2 books, and both books are eye-openers, very independent. One is the transfer of power, how the British transferred the power to India, and then the second one is integration of state. Now, integration of state was the most difficult task, and Patel did it, who was the Home Minister at that time. He decided that people are so proud of their language and culture, and language and culture go side by side. And back home, you will see when the language changes, the dress up of the person also changes. You know, and you go from state to state, you will find a lot of changes in the culture. And so that pride of the language, they wanted to bring back in. That's why the whole India was completely divided. The princely states were all merged and divided on the basis of language. And a lot of people gave sacrifices. I think the first state that was formed was Andhra Pradesh. And at Andhra Pradesh, the person fasted unto death and died. And after his death, Andhra Pradesh was formed. That was the first calamity of the liberation of states at that time. And then other states kept on going. The last 2 states were left, as you know, was the Gujarat and Punjab. They were both declared bilingual. Gujarat was declared bilingual with Marathi and Gujarati. Punjab was bilingual with Punjabi and Hindi. And then first Gujarat was formed because Congress own minister told that, you know, if this is not formed, then I am going to resign. And I think his name was Deshmukh. He was the finance minister of India. And when he protested, Gujarat was divided into 2 states. That's also, you can see, there is a clear distinction between Marathis and Gujaratis. When you see them and when you talk to them, their language is different, their way of dressing. So that's the criteria. That's why they wanted to bring back the pride that you should be proud of your language but stay united with it. I think that was not a bad thing. But for Sikhs, you know, it was very different. Punjabis, who were our co-brothers, our brothers, Hindu brothers, who told yesterday, you have seen already in the drama that was displayed here, and that Punjabi Hindu will say, very language Hindi, very bhasha. Bolega Punjabis cannot even speak Hindi, but says my language is Hindi because they consider Hindi as their religious language. That's why they are proud of that, and that's their culture. So I think it's so much, and a person born here will not understand why they are fighting for this.
Wanted to comment on Iqbal's question, and we'll just see what you think about this. But the impression that I got too was that when they were putting those economic things in there, they had no plan. They basically had to have a response. Indira Gandhi and Congress Party had a certain plan. One of the resolutions is we don't agree with India's foreign policy. Basically, they're saying we don't agree with this war in Pakistan, and we don't. So they're just taking the opposite stand. Almost just everything. That's why Indira Gandhi considered it a separatist document. That, you know, whatever our policy is to create one cohesive nation, you guys are going the opposite way. And the other thing too that I think is worth noting is Indira Gandhi was using like these socialist type plans to get the support of the whole country that we need, like purposely regulating Punjab while deregulating other areas, giving permits for sugar mills, whatever, in other parts of India and restricting them in Punjab, so to force the economy into other parts of the country and reduce the economic dependence that was there on Punjab, and therefore eliminating like some kind of Punjab power. What do you think about that perspective on it?
I think the resolution, actually the initial resolution that I read, that is for the entire India. It does not mention specifically Punjab. But those resolutions, there are some local demands that they have. And so that's why I put down those separately. You know, I think it's mumbo jumbo that way that, you know, they mix those things so much together. And now, when you hear about the Anandpur resolution, all these resolutions as well as the basic text, they all come together and it confuses the person. Because I think the first part was a general resolution, that's what it should be. And the rest of them are local demands that need to be fulfilled. Okay. Thanks very much. Yeah.
One more question. So you know, Uncle this morning had mentioned that it was often custom that the first son in a Hindu family was made into a Sikh. This used to be the old culture.
First time in the family?
That the first son in a Hindu family was actually made into a Sikh. Right? I mean, I've heard that before too. Sanji? So where was it that the relationship changed? Like if at some point the Hindus and Sikhs were actually so cordial with each other that the Hindus had their first son turn into a Sikh, why did right after 47 there was such an anti-Sikh sentiment? Where did that arise from? They did not have that relationship before.
That relationship has changed because people have become more communal.
Became more key?
More communal. I think that's the thing, and we fail to tolerate our Hindu friends. Many times we have some very rough remarks against them. We turn them away. In our Gurdwaras also. There are ways of telling or presenting ourselves, the ways of telling, making people understand Gurbani. Some of the things in Gurbani are written, but when we translate them, we have to be very careful and translate them properly. And presenting to people in a polite way. You know, Guru Sahib never said that I am not going to wear the Janevu, for example. He didn't. Guru Sahib simply said, this is the kind of Janevu. If you have, give it to me, I'll give it. There are two ways of saying it. When we are rough with people, we are turning them away. And that's what happened in the past. That people were proud to make their son, first son, as Sikh. Because they say we need protection. And we are sending, here is our protection. This is our first son. And it's just like sending one member of the family to the army. They used to do that. So, partly it's our fault, partly it's their fault also, because they have also become very strong in their professions. That's what I feel. I think there is no straight or clear-cut answer to that question.
The following up on Viri's point, one important aspect is that somehow within the time course, our history is just 300, 400 years old. But within the last century or so, deliberately or whatever it is, the education system has omitted the roles of our Sikh gurus, the sacrifices of Sikhs, not only in independence, leave aside before that, the battles of 1800s, 1900s, nothing of that sort is present in the government books in India anymore. kids going through basic education, they are taught about Buddhism, Christianity, India, Akbar coming, but
Interface, yeah.
nothing about Sikhism, nothing about gurus. To that extent, that was 2005 or 2006, whereas in an NCERT book, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji was referred to as a terrorist who had stolen Guru Granth Sahib Ji and was executed by the Mughals. जो काफी हवा पे आसीदा दे करके they had to meet it. So it's
I know. So some of the communal attitude, the attitude against the Guru, that's why. And then about the Sikhs also, they try to understand Gurmani more. As we are becoming more and more educated, we are learning more about Gurmani. And sometimes we are going to the extreme in our approach also. We do not know how to present Guru's Bani or Guru's word. That's what yes.
Okay. This is kind of like an opinion question, so you can write off the answer shorter as long as you want. But
Can you speak into the mic?
you guys were talking about how the relationship changed between Hindus and Sikhs and things like that. But the purpose of the Akali Dal, it lists very first that it's going to be the propagation of Sikhism, and then later on it says baptizing of Sikhs on a mass scale. So if you're talking about there was kind of like resentment of that, like are they saying baptizing Sikhs because they were just people who were practicing Sikh lifestyle but they weren't baptized? Or was there something else being applied there, you think?
Which Sikhs you are talking about?
Okay. So the purpose of the document says it's one of its things that it's going to do to propagate Sikhism is to do baptizing of Sikhs on a mass scale. So it just means to baptize like a lot of people. So my question is do you think that that's just they were baptizing Sikhs who were already practicing that lifestyle, but they hadn't been baptized yet, or I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Well, did I mention about baptizing?
It's in the
document.
It's in the number resolution.
It's in the document.
It's in the
It's in the document. Well, baptizing is initiating into the Sikh faith. That is the purpose. Every Sikh needs to be baptized so that they can come under discipline. Baptism is actually a discipline. You have to follow a certain way of life. That's why baptism is practice. That you should get yourself initiated, take it from the Panch Pyaras and consider it.
I think she's asking Uncle T because when someone writes that like that, are they at all insinuating like they will mass baptize many people? Like would the others potentially think these guys are out to say that they're going to baptize us into Sikhi?
Forced
Like us, the Hindus. Forcibly. Like, is there an underlying sentiment that people could have read from that? I think is that what
In
your
other words, misinterpreted.
question is? Could it have been interpreted differently by other
Well,
people?
I think it's interpreted differently because there is no force worship, no forced baptism. Baptism that's the first thing that they ask, that if you want to get baptized, did you come on your own? Or did somebody force you to come? That's the first question before baptism is asked. So it can never be forced. That's what it is. And they say if you have to come because you were forced to come over here, then this is not a place. That's